Today I wanted to talk about the Writers Guild and how they're striking, and it's the first time they've done this in 15 years. Last time I remembered was around Heroes and stuff like that, and I never really understood because not much information around that time was actually out there to kind of talk about all of this. So I thought I would read it to you so you can figure out what's going on with a lot of your favorite American TV shows and stuff like this, because writers are one of the most important part of any TV show that's made, because obviously without them you wouldn't get really good quality content. Okay, so Writers Guild calls first strike in 15 years. Picketing by Hollywood scribes slated it to begin at 1 p.m. PT in Los Angeles at production sites across the city, with simulated demonstrations occurring in New York. For the first time in 15 years, Hollywood writers are going out on strike. The Writers Guild of America announced that a work stoppage will begin Tuesday afternoon after negotiations with the labor group representing studios and streamers flattered on Monday night. In Los Angeles, members will begin picketing at 1 p.m. PT and Tuesday at locations including Amazon, Culver Studios, CBS Radford, and CBS Television, City, Disney Burbank headquarters, Netflix Hollywood plant, and the Fox. Sony, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Universal Studio lots in Los Angeles. In New York, picketing will occur at Peacock's Newfront at Center 415 at 1 p.m. ET, and Netflix Manhattan headquarters at 2 p.m. ET time. In the statement on Wednesday night, the WGA said that negotiating committee began this process intent of making a full deal, but the studio's response have been hopefully insufficient given the existential crisis writers are facing. The union allied that studios and streamers would not agree to any guaranteed of number of weeks employment for television writers in talks, that they proposed creating a day rate for comedy variety writers, essential creating a day player category for these writers, stumbled on proposals over minimizing work with no pay and proposals to regulate AI like ChatGPT in WGA covered work. So when this sort of stuff comes up, a lot of people are kind of worried that, studios will just get maybe one person to kind of write a script with ChatGPT and then that produces it, and thus therefore you wouldn't need writers anymore. That is one thing that they are kind of talking about, which is kind of weird. I understand how AI is, but from my kind of experience with it and from what I've seen, it doesn't really hold a lot more to it than that. I feel like it wouldn't do as great, and I feel like you will need writers rather than someone sitting back going, let's just get that computer to write itself, it'll be amazing. It just, to me, would be really shittily weird. Earlier in the night, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which represents studios and streamers in collective bargaining, said in a statement that the negotiations concluded without an agreement. In its explanation, the AMPTP said it offered a comprehensive package proposal with boosts to compensation and streaming residuals. Residuals are basically when things get rerun, like, if they decide to do the whole thing of Friends, then the money from that would then go to the stars and the writers, etc., etc. I think someone said that they got like $12,000 and then they made like $4 from streaming and stuff like that, and it doesn't really work. You kind of feel like if you're signing in a contract with residuals that you would get a lot more rather than a low amount, because say for example, if I watch the entire load of Star Trek and like 1 million people watch Deep Space Nine with me, not in my house but obviously on the platform, then money from that should go back to it because writing, and if that's in the contract. I know a lot of people will disagree, but you kind of think with your work that you would get residuals for that. But sticking points that remained included the Guild's proposal around minimum writing staff, Caesars, and minimum amount of time for employment. Still, the AMPTP stated that it is willing to engage in discussions with the WGA in effort to break this log jam. Its companies, it added, remain united in their desire to reach a deal that is maturely beneficial to writers and health and longevity of the industry, and to avoid hardship to thousands of employees who depend upon the industry for their livelihoods. The two parties have yet to schedule a future date for return to the bargaining table. So, some of the other things in this article, say roughly here. One writer added that they really did a double take on the AMPTP's complete unwillingness to negotiate on AI. They just want a computer-generated story and have maybe one writer punch it up and cut out all of all the process. Now, I think that's quite bad, because if studios do turn around right now and say, hey, we will just give you an idea, let's write the Big Bang Theory spin-off, we'll just put in something like Sheldon returns with Leonard and then see what happens, and then put more information into it, and it generates stuff, and then have one writer sit down and go, oh, I've got to edit all of this. Now, I generally think that companies shouldn't be able to use AI for this, because it will put people out of work. Some of the best comedy sketches, as well as other things that have happened with TV shows, obviously come from the imagination of people. Now, there are bad writers out there as well. So again, sometimes it just feels weird knowing that they can't write really, really well. So yeah, but I feel like when you have stuff like someone's just going to put a load of stuff in, you could generate it over and over and over again. But from the stuff that I've done on the channel, again, it's not major, but it's give me a happy ending, and it's just and everyone seemed really happy that they hugged, and then they shook hands, and they always knew that they were this, and it's just really kind of weird. So I don't think AI should be able to be generate that. Maybe if you were to use AI for an entire story, then put in the topics, generate me 10 topics of this, and then have the writers go off and write stuff around it. It just means that this is another way for people to be out of work, and I don't agree with that. So we've got some of the kind of issues, some strict strike rules. This is the Writers Guild of America. To the members, no writing, revising, pitching, or negotiating with companies that are members of the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which is the bargaining table with the writers. I kind of like that. So they've also asked that they are instructed its members to report any peers that may be in violation of these rules and face union discipline, and tell any companies with spec scripts in their possession to return them and delete them. So again, that's kind of nice. It's not oh, hey, someone's going to sneak in with their kind of proposal. And again, I imagine that if they did and they're part of this, if they're part of the WGA, that they would just be you're out, you're fucking out. So I know a lot of people are going to be scrambling for work, but the fact is they're all on strike, and I do support that. I hate the fact that they're not being paid well. They're not being paid a lot, or they're being paid underpaid from what they are in the studio. Now, the last one was in 2007-2008, and it lasted 100 days, while the strike in 1988 lasted 153 days, and the strike in the 1985 strike only took 14 days. So it has been a while. I didn't realize it'd been over 100 days. Now, there are some other things that we want to talk about. Late night shows. Now, the only late night show that I generally really like is Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. That is my favorite one because I find it more interesting. When I see stuff like Jimmy Fallon as well as Jimmy Kimmel, I generally think they're the same person at times, and I get confused. I don't like these two that much, and I don't really know these two. I've seen this guy, Stephen Colbert. I've seen him around. I'm not a big fan, mainly because I really don't like Jimmy Fallon. And Jimmy Kimmel, both of them just really fucking annoy me. So we're going to quickly go over this article. ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live, these sorts of shows are all shutting down after the Writers Guild of America called a strike on Monday night, and will air reruns for the time being. Comedy Central's The Daily Show is also shutting down and will air repeats, and HBO's Max Real Time with Bill Meyer and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver are going dark as well. Later Tuesday, NBC's Saturday Night Live also shut down. Isn't that the one with... I generally think Saturday Night Live, if that's the one with James Corden, I fucking hate him, and I hate him. Colbert and Myers both addressed as a possible strike on their shows Monday, which were taped before the Guild could call the work stoppage. Without our writers, the show would be called The Late Night Show, with a guy rambling about Lord of the Rings and boats for an hour. Colbert joked, "This negotiation affects our whole staff, who work so hard to bring a show this every night, and which is why everybody, including myself, hopes both sides reach a deal." He continued, "I support collective bargaining. This nation owes so much to the unions. They're the reason we have weekends, and by extension why we have TGI Fridays. So next time you enjoy a whiskey glazed blaze burger, you thank a union." It's really weird. Myers also expressed support for the union and his writers, saying strong writing is essential to the show. "It's essential to any show. The host, like myself, is at best a C+ performer. I really gotta have the jokes. I love writing. I love writing for TV and for the show. No one is entitled to a job in show business, but for those who have a job in show business, they're entitled to fair compensation. They're entitled to make a living. I think it's very reasonable demand that's being put out by the Guild, and I support those demands. The Writers Guild and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, representing studios and streamers, called off negotiations Monday night, after which the Guild called for a strike. The writers' contract with the studio expired Monday. The union's demands included residuals for streaming programs, data transparency, minimum staffing levels for the writing room, and regulations on the use for artificial intelligence in writing. So kind of rounding all of this up, it looks like a lot of people within the industry look like they are supporting this. I'm very much wondering if, like, say, John Oliver is going to come out and say something as well, or if they're just going to go completely dark and they're not going to have anything new. Maybe have one last thing at the very beginning of the next episode or the next few and say, hey, if you're watching this, then this is a rerun. We are on strike with them. We stand with them. So seeing like all these late night shows just kind of like shut down for a while is actually very, very interesting. This will probably affect a lot more shows. You probably won't see it for a while because obviously if everything has been shot and is done normally, you won't see this sort of change for a while. So I generally do kind of like the fact that like everybody is standing by them, and I kind of really wanted to talk about it. I might make an update video or so, as this keeps moving, but I probably will make an update video, but I do generally wanted to kind of talk about this because I think this is important and that everybody kind of needs to know about this. I'm gonna leave it there. What are your thoughts all on this? What did you think about the last one that happened? Let me know down below in those comments, and I will see you in the next video. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe, and maybe if you want, check out the channel memberships. I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I will catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help does go a long way to support the channel. And if you want to consider helping the channel, then links to my Patreon as well as the channel members are listed below.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。